Today, I'm going to tell you the 3 critical things that every manager needs to focus on if they want to create speed in their organization. By watching today, you're going to understand how you too can move just as fast as these amazing companies that are winning and succeeding. Well, I mean, let's be clear. Maybe you're not going to move as fast as NVIDIA. I don't think it's possible to move as fast as Jensen Huang, but you can move faster. So let's go. To start off, I want to tell you some crazy examples from flight and from space exploration about just why speed is so important. First, we need to look at an example of 2 X-planes, the XB-1 from Boom Supersonic and the X-59 from NASA. Now, these are 2 planes. Both were unveiled about the same time, actually, a little over a year ago. And they both had the intention of helping bring back supersonic passenger air travel by making quieter supersonic booms, right? One of the reasons why supersonic air travel doesn't happen anywhere, but especially in the United States, is because of the fact that you can't fly over land because we don't want these loud sonic booms going everywhere. And so they were both unveiled about the same time. And then since they were unveiled, and this is back, they were unveiled back in 2024. And if you look at the beginning of 2025, the XB-1 from Boom Supersonic flew 11 times, completed all its test objectives, and was retired. What did the X-59 do? In that same time, it has had 1 high-speed taxi test. It never even flew. And the crazy thing is that the whole reason that the X-59 program exists could be argued doesn't matter anymore because Boom Supersonic's XB-1 campaign figured out how to have supersonic flight without the sonic boom ever reaching the ground. So the idea of quieter sonic booms doesn't even apply anymore. The NASA program was moving so slowly that they haven't even flown and they're already obsolete. Similar story, actually, it was also about NASA, happened with SpaceX. So this is a story around supersonic retropropulsion. This is a technology that's required to land on Mars. If you want to land big payloads on Mars, the air isn't thick enough for parachutes to do anything. And so you have to use rocket engines to land. And that means you're going to be flying through the atmosphere at supersonic speeds. You're going to fire engines out into the air in order to slow you down. So that's why it's supersonic, because you're going supersonic, retropropulsion, because it's slowing you down, supersonic retropropulsion. NASA had been interested in this for years because of wanting to go to Mars. They had a research program, they had wind tunnels, they were doing all kinds of analysis to figure out whether or not this was even possible, because people honestly weren't sure. SpaceX was also interested in this because in order to land rockets on land, after launching them into space, you also need supersonic retropropulsion. And SpaceX went about this a little bit differently. They didn't have wind tunnels. They didn't do a big research program. They had these rockets that they were already launching and bringing back towards the atmosphere. So they said, let's just turn it on. Let's just see what happens. And so they turned it on. It worked. And sure enough, the NASA program just got scrapped, right? Like all those researchers, all that stuff they were doing, they just, again, the NASA program moved so slow that before they even achieved any results, they became obsolete. One other example, a little more commonplace from my world. A number of years ago, I interviewed for a role at UCLA where they were going to be. It was a contract role to build training for a new HR system that they were implementing. The contract was for 18 months because that's how long the implementation was expected to take. And they said, don't worry, the contract's going to be extended because they're already behind. And the truth is, this is what happens for basically every enterprise level system implementation. We have these long timelines. It's going to take 18 months. It's going to take 2 years, and they're always pushed back. And in my opinion, why this matters from a speed perspective, the reason why they get pushed back is because they're taking so long, right? In the first 6 months, the organization does a reorg. They, completely change their strategic direction. They fire half the company. They hire half of them back. There's all these changes. And so all those changes have to be incorporated into this system. And so it pushes the timeline out. And then in that push, it pushes the timeline. Things change again and it pushes the timeline out. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. In the world today, there is so much change that if you are not moving quickly, you will never finish. because the situation on the ground is always going to change for whatever project you're doing, and thus you're never going to actually achieve anything because you're going to have to keep redoing your work because the whole landscape is changing so quickly. This is why for the past several months, I've been really focused on this message of how do you lead in a world of constant change. I keep talking to companies where leaders are just like, oh my goodness, I can't, I just want things to go back to normal. I can't wait for things to slow down. It's not going to slow down. It's just like with we always say with AI, right? Today is the worst it's ever going to be, right? It's just going to keep getting better. Today, I hate to tell you this, today is the slowest the world is ever going to move for the rest of time, right? That's just how it's going to work. It's going to keep moving faster. And so what you need, especially if you are a leader, you need a new set of principles, a new set of skills to lead in these times of change. And I think there are 3 of them. What are those 3? So the first one, really important, and I bring this up a lot, is trust. Trust is always important, but it's especially important during times of change because people fear change. Why? Because of that uncertainty. Am I going to have a job? Am I going to get paid? Am I going to be able to pay for, food and housing for my family? People are really concerned about that. And as long as they're concerned about that, any change is bad. The way to fix that is with trust. I actually saw this, strangely enough, at SpaceX because SpaceX really beat a strong drum amongst all their employees where we said, if you automate yourself out of the job, we will find you a new job. And we actually saw this when the Falcon 9 rocket had a major design change where the thrust structure, the octaweb at the bottom, it for a long time was a welded structure. And so we had all these welders and they changed the design where it was a bolted structure. So there are no more welds. So all of a sudden, all these welders, all these people running these weld machines, they weren't needed anymore. Every single one of them found a new position at SpaceX. We didn't just lay the whole team off. We wanted to set an example that said, as we improve, you're going to be protected. And that's the same. You need to think about how are we going to build trust on our team so that my people feel more comfortable with change, that they can be accepting of it, or at the least we're able to talk about their concerns and so that they feel heard and we can move forward. So building trust is the absolute first one. The second really important idea is clarity of communication. And depending on where you are, how you achieve it might be different, but it's very different from the old school. The old school, I think, used to be that information was very top down and it was kind of controlled and held onto. And in a world of constant change, in order to lead more quickly, you need to just let as much information as possible flow through you. A great example of this comes from the book Team of Teams, where General Stanley McChrystal, when he was faced with being the commander of special forces in Iraq back in 2008, the world was constantly changing for these teams. They were always getting in each other's way, and he needed a way to create what he called a shared consciousness. And one of the things that he did, this will blow your mind, he said they had a 90-minute all-hands meeting for 4,000 people every single day. Can you imagine that? Like, imagine all hands in your company. They're usually a waste of time. But this book made me really think companies need to have more larger meetings. This might be for the company, this might be for your team, but think about it. How often do you have a meeting and there's like one person that's not there, so you can't make a decision? So now you have to have another meeting. Or in lieu of a team meeting, you end up having like 15 one-on-one meetings. Jensen Huang doesn't have one-on-ones for this very reason. He has 60 direct reports and never has one-on-ones because he doesn't believe that there's no piece of information that he is sharing that should be shared with just one individual. The more people who know about this, the better. He wants everyone to have as much information as possible so that they can make the right decisions on the ground. So once you have these two things, you have the trust and you have the clarity of communication, this is what allows you to go faster, to just pull in the timelines. Alex Hormozi gave the greatest line about this, where he talks about when you're tasking things to your team, say end of day instead of end of week, right? Many times when we're tasking things to our teams, we say, just get it to me by the end of the week. And we do that because we know they already have things to do. But most of these taskers probably only take a few hours. They could be done today. And we can't do anything else. Like after that tasker, there's probably another thing and another thing, but those other things are gated by this first task getting done. And so when we say, get it to me by the end of the week, we can't do anything else until the end of the week. And so if we say end of day, well, now we can move on to the next task tomorrow. And I can already hear you saying like, but wait, but like now you're just overloading them with work. And that's true. That could be true. In places like SpaceX, that's exactly what they do. They just overload people and expect them to do it. Not every team can do that. Not every team should do that. So really what you should be doing is if you have this trust and clear communication already set up, when you say, hey, can you get that to me by the end of the day? They should feel comfortable turning back to you and saying, okay, great. I had these 5 things to do. Which of these do you not want me to do today so that I can get this new task to you today? And you should be able to have that conversation. You should be the one setting the priorities. But so if you have that trust, this doesn't work if you don't have trust and clear communication. If you don't have those 2 things and you just try to go faster, it's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to high stress. It's going to lead to people leaving your team. But once you have trust and clear communication, now all bets are off. Now you can move faster. And this is what happens in some of the most successful companies in the world right now. If you look at the two of these companies, you look at SpaceX, that is the most valuable private company in the world, and NVIDIA, that is the most valuable company in the world, as of this recording anyway. Both of them have phrases that are part of their culture that are all about moving at speed. At SpaceX, early on at SpaceX, so SpaceX was started in LA. Malibu is just up the road. It's just up the Pacific Coast Highway. And if all the lights are green, it takes about an hour to get up there. And so, but usually when you're going there, it takes several hours because it's not green lights. There's all kinds of traffic. And so they had this joking phrase where when they would talk about a project and how long is this project going to take, they would say, that's the green lights to Malibu schedule, right? Like, let's set this as the green lights to Malibu schedule. Let's set this timeline, assuming that everything goes right. And that's what we hold ourselves accountable to. Similarly at NVIDIA, they would always talk about how do we move at the speed of light? What does the speed of light look like for this project? What is literally, we cannot move any faster, and that is the standard that they would hold themselves to. So the bottom line is change isn't going away. It's here, it's getting faster, but you don't have to choose between burnout and falling behind, especially if you are a leader and you do these things. If you first get high trust with your team and clearly communicate with them, I guarantee you can move faster in a way that doesn't lead to burnout because people are going to be working on the right things and they're going to know exactly what to do. I hope you found this video helpful. It's always my goal to break these, big picture leadership ideas and skills down to some really simple practices. This is a huge one that I'm going to be talking about a lot because leading in constant change is a skill that everyone needs. I hope you watch another video and I hope you have a great day.